Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Offsport Daz.
Offsport Aidan.
We are Offsport Daz Sports Edition. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. We're already almost at 10,000 subs.
Not far.
Not bad. We're going to do a new competition soon as well for a football shirt, a Premier League shirt or a shirt from Europe. One of them. We've not decided which one yet, so be ready for that. Be subscribed already, waiting for it. Right?
Yeah.
We've done what we've done so far. We've done the Wrexham shirt
And the
Man City shirt. Yeah. So one coming up again soon. Meet the most hated NFL player ever.
Oof. Didn't we see like a video about some guy that was really rough and violent in his game?
It was,
so like his name in like Alski or something.
I want to say Gronkowski, but it wasn't him, was it?
No.
It was Romanowski.
Romanowski, yeah.
But animal, wasn't he? Evil.
Yeah.
But this is the most hated player in NFL ever. Don't know who this is.
What if it's him?
Could be. Could be him. Let's have a look.
Yeah.
Is known as a gladiator sport, but there's a line that players know they can't cross. And it's a line that one particular player has gone far beyond, way more than others. Meet the most hated player in NFL history, Vontaze Burfict. To fully understand why Vontaze became the type of player he did, one must know the life he was born into. Burfict was born in South Central Los Angeles to parents who had both been gang members. While Vontaze's mom got her life together and became a city transit bus driver, the same could not be said for his father. Throughout Vontaze's childhood, his dad was in and out of prison for dealing cocaine. He is currently serving a 25-year prison sentence and has no known relationship with his son. So with Vontaze's father out of the picture, his mother had to step up and raise him and his older half-brother by herself. This tough upbringing shaped Vontaze's personality from a young age, and he was well known for his aggression. Like a lot of aggressive youth, Burfict turned to football as a way to unleash his feelings. The sport allowed and even encouraged him to be himself. But when it came time to play for Centennial High School in Corona, California, Vontaze was forced to miss almost all of his sophomore season due to academic issues. The following year, he improved his grades and was finally able to show everyone what he was all about on the football field. As a junior, he led the team in tackles with 130, and Vontaze wasn't just shining on your average team. Centennial finished that 2007 season as number 24 on USA Today's top 25 high school teams. Then, as a senior, Burfict again led the team in tackles with 159 and helped them win a state championship, being ranked second in the country by USA Today. Although Vontaze was thriving, he was simultaneously developing a reputation that would follow him around for years to come. His mom said that parents would often come up to her at games and ask her to tell Vontaze not to hit their son so hard. It'd be one thing if Burfict was hitting hard within the rules, but that wasn't the case. One example from his high school career stands out and involves a future NFL quarterback. While going up against Matt Barkley, one of the top prospects in the country, Vontaze dove headfirst at Barkley's knees while flying in at full speed. Burfict's intentions were clear as day, and so egregious that Barkley never forgot about it. Talking about Vontaze years later, when the two were set to face off at the college level, Barkley said, "He's a dirty player. His switch is always on, and it's not a good switch." Despite his quickly growing reputation for being a dirty player, Burfict was labeled a can't-miss prospect. He was a consensus 5-star recruit, listed as the #1 inside linebacker prospect in the nation, and chosen to play in the 2009 U.S. Army All-American Bowl. Vontaze had schools from all over the country, such as USC, Colorado, Tennessee, Miami, and Arizona State begging him to choose them. He eventually committed to USC, which at the time was considered one of the elite programs. However, Burfict later decommitted from the Trojans before ending up at Arizona State. After arriving in Tempe to play for the Sun Devils, Vontaze wasted no time showing his new coaches and teammates the type of player he was. While talking about Burfict, one reporter who covered Arizona State football said, "I think in the first week after he'd been cleared academically as a freshman, he was in a fight every day of practice that following week." But just like in high school, Vontaze was dominant enough to overlook his dirty play. As a freshman at ASU, Burfict played in all 12 games and further distracted people with his standout ability. He finished the season with 69 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 2 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles, on his way to being named Pac-10 Defensive Freshman of the Year. After making the transition to college ball look so easy, expectations were high heading into Vontaze's sophomore year, and he was...
I don't mind a dirty player. When I say dirty player, it's these snide players who do it deliberately, like out, but then these aggressive players.
Yeah, there's a difference between aggressive and dirty.
Yeah, he comes across as like a very aggressive, like knows what he wants, going for it. Whether that tackle on his knee was deliberate.
It did look deliberate.
He dipped his head, didn't he? His head was down there. I mean, that's you
wouldn't go for his knees either.
No, you're trying to end someone's career there.
Yeah.
To permanently damage them, which is a bit what's about. When I said like a dirty player, I like an aggressive player, not a dirty player.
Yeah, you can't. If you're hitting them hard, that's a good thing. I think.
But he's got the aggression. He's just got to sign.
But he's
got to channel it, hasn't he?
Go as hard as you possibly can until it's against the rules of the game.
Yeah, once you cross that line, it's the lines across that you don't, shouldn't be done.
Was listed as a preseason All-American. By midway through the season, his on-field production was that of an All-American, as he led the Sun Devils in tackles. But then, in a game against Oregon State, Vontaze did something that could no longer be brushed aside as normal football aggression. After missing a tackle on the Beavers quarterback, and with the play clearly being over, Burfict got up and headbutted the QB. Oregon State's head coach at the time, Mike Riley, said, "I know one thing, somebody is taking a blow every play Burfict is on the field." Following the headbutt, Burfict's actions had gotten so out of hand that he left his coach with no choice. Despite being the team's unquestioned best player, he was left out of the starting lineup for the team's next game because he kept crossing the line. His coach, Dennis Erickson, said, "There are things that are non-football related, and you just can't have them. We had one of those in the game against Oregon State, so he's not going to start, and hopefully he can learn to control himself." This punishment wouldn't slow down Vontaze's season, as he finished with 90 tackles, with 8.5 of them being for a loss and 2 forced fumbles. However, his dirty play was being noticed, and he was labeled the meanest man in college football that offseason. And yet, prior to his junior season, the Burfict hype train was off and running. He was viewed as one of the best linebacker prospects in the upcoming draft and was projected by most experts to be a first-round pick. The problem was, everything changed that year. Vontaze didn't have nearly as large of an impact as people had expected. He had 21 fewer tackles than the season before and 0 forced fumbles. But even after a disappointing season and having one more year of eligibility, Burfict decided to declare for the 2012 NFL Draft. With his on-field production having dipped, people were now focusing more on his anger management issues. And for good reason. Vontaze picked up a personal foul in more than every other game, finishing with 22 in 37 games. That is unheard of at any level of football. NFL Network's Mike Mayock, a week before the draft, said, "I think he's a non-draftable kid. For me, he's a free agent." 253 names were called during the draft, and Mayock wound up being right, as Vontaze Burfict was not one of them. After going undrafted, the Bengals took a flyer on Burfict and signed him to a 3-year, $1.44 million contract with a $1,000 signing bonus. The experience seemed to be a wake-up call for Vontaze, who went from projected first-round pick to having to battle to even make a roster. But he impressed the Bengals in training camp and made their 53-man roster before appearing in all 16 games that season for Cincinnati. Vontaze was also on his best behavior that year, staying out of trouble. It wasn't until his second season that Burfict couldn't help himself and slipped into his old habits. In Week 3, against the Packers, Vontaze received his first NFL fine following a hit to tight end Ryan Taylor below the belt after the play had ended. And it didn't take long at all for Vontaze to receive his second fine. That came in the same game, when he was flagged for nailing James Jones in the head, who was deemed a defenseless receiver. Then, just 3 games later against the Bills, Burfict was called for 3 different 15-yard penalties, and Vontaze wasn't done yet. In Week 8 against the Jets, he was fined again for trying to take the head off wide receiver Stephen Hill. While all of these incidents would have defined the season as a whole for most players, it didn't for Burfict. Once again, his on-field dominance was there to distract some of the narrative. During that 2013 season, Vontaze led the NFL in tackles with 171 and became the first Bengals linebacker to be selected to the Pro Bowl since 1976. Then, looking to build on that standout season the following year, a knee injury forced Burfict to only play in 5 games. However, the shortened season didn't stop him from making more headlines. Just not for the right reason. Playing against the Panthers, Vontaze was caught maliciously twisting the ankles of Cam Newton and Greg Olsen after the play on 2 separate occasions. So the NFL added to Burfict's growing fines total. That number only got larger during the 2015 season, when Vontaze was hit with a $69,454 fine for 2 unnecessary roughness penalties and diving at Ben Roethlisberger's knees, all in the same game. And during a Week 17 game that year, Burfict was fined $50,000 for a cheap shot on Ravens tight end Max Williams. Then, in the Bengals wildcard matchup against the Steelers, events involving Burfict reached a boiling point. With less than 20 seconds to go in the game, a pass clearly sailed over Antonio Brown's head. But Vontaze being Vontaze, he took the moment as an opportunity to blow up Brown, lowering his shoulder into Brown's head. The refs called a penalty, which ended up costing the Bengals the game and their season. The hit was so brutal that Brown was knocked out of the game with a concussion and kept out of the Steelers' divisional round game the following week. Burfict was suspended for the first 3 games of the next season. By then, Burfict's reputation was inescapable, and he was the undisputed most despised person in Pittsburgh. Being forced to sit out those games and being the reason your team's season ended prematurely should have been another wake-up call for Vontaze. But this time around, it wasn't. During the 2016 season, he was fined $75,000 for stomping on Patriots running back LeGarrette Blount after a play, and $12,154 for giving the middle finger to Bills fans. While some people could try to defend Burfict by saying all these occurred during the heat of battle, that argument was thrown out the window during the 2017 preseason. Chiefs fullback Anthony Sherman was going out for a pass when Vontaze laid him out, despite the ball not even going to Sherman. The play would have been extremely dirty even if it was a regular season or a playoff game, but to do it in the preseason was so unheard of and so uncalled for that the NFL suspended Burfict for 5 games. The suspension was eventually reduced to 3 games, but Vontaze still didn't learn his lesson, and in Week 7 was fined $12,154 for kicking Steelers fullback Roosevelt Nix. Following this incident and the wild card game the previous season, everyone was expecting fireworks for Cincinnati's Week 13 matchup with Pittsburgh. After years of Burfict hunting Steelers players, would someone from the black and yellow finally retaliate? In the fourth quarter, with the Steelers trailing, Juju Smith-Schuster decided to make a statement. Burfict's attention was centered on the ball carrier Le'Veon Bell when Juju came across the middle and laid a vicious blindside block on Vontaze. Juju then stood over the visibly dazed and confused Burfict and let him know how he and the entire city of Pittsburgh felt. The play perfectly represented how so many people.
How satisfying was that
it was,
to
wasn't it?
watch that? Jesus.
Like I was saying
Juju
before,
came across the middle and laid a vicious blindside block on Vontaze. Juju then stood over the visibly dazed and confused Burfict.
So I'm saying I don't mind an aggressive player. I love an aggressive player.
But most of that wasn't.
That's not
just
aggression.
crossing
That's
the
pure
like,
madness.
It's just mean, isn't it?
It's not team. It's not team.
You're trying to literally twist their ankles and break their knees and stuff like that.
I mean, I get. You know, there's many times we've played games where someone says to me, "He's playing with a slight knock on his ankle. Go after him." So I think, and you put a heavy tackle in, knowing that he's already got a sore ankle, and you know that if you tapped him on his ankle, you might have to go off, and probably one of their best players. So you go after him and you kick him in the ankle a little bit, just to sort of like, you know.
That's nothing on there.
This is
he's
trying to end people's
twisting
careers.
their foot.
Yeah, I know, he's a nutcase.
And let him know how he and the entire city of Pittsburgh felt. The play perfectly represented how so many people felt after having watched Vontaze wreak so much havoc outside the rules of the sport.
Well.
In fact, Juju said, "After that hit, I don't have to pay for anything. When I go to bars, I don't have to pay for drinks or anything. Yo, we appreciate what you did," and stuff like that. Then, during the 2018 offseason, just when it seemed like Burfict had been punished for it all, he found a way to break another rule. He was suspended 4 games for violating the league's PED policy. And in just his second game back from suspension, Vontaze was fined $112,000 for hits on Antonio Brown and James Conner. Once the season ended, the Bengals had to think long and hard about whether Burfict's play was good enough to warrant all of the extra issues that came with it. Ultimately, they determined it was not, and parted ways with their extremely problematic linebacker. In just 7 total seasons in Cincinnati, Burfict managed to rack up over $4.5 million in fines and forfeited pay. For context, in his first 2 seasons with the Bengals, he only made $871,000 from his contract. Following his release, a team gave Vontaze a second chance, if you can even call it that, and who did it should come as no surprise given their historical reputation. The Oakland Raiders signed Vontaze to a 1-year, $5 million contract. Now, playing for a new team, Burfict had a chance to finally turn a new leaf. If he were to cut out the dirty plays in Oakland, people would potentially begin to change their perception of him. His days as a Bengal could be associated with a different Vontaze, like Ron Artest years after the malice at the Palace, when he became known as Meta World Peace. And at first with the Raiders, Burfict seemed on his way to achieving this transformation. During the 2019 offseason and training, he won over the Oakland coaching staff and players, as they named him a team captain. That's an honor reserved for a leader, not someone who loses their mind on the field. However, in a Week 4 matchup with the Colts, everything changed when tight end Jack Doyle caught a pass over the middle. Doyle was on his knees and defenseless when Burfict came in full speed and lowered his helmet into Doyle's. Even for Vontaze's standards, it was as dirty as it gets. He was immediately ejected from the game, and the league decided they needed to do something that they had never done before. Burfict was suspended for the rest of the season, and his 12-game suspension marked the longest in league history for an on-field hit.
So that means the Raiders have just paid him $1 million to do nothing?
5 million.
5 million, sorry, it was, 5 million.
Well, it's probably something in his contract that if you get suspended, you don't get paid.
Do you reckon?
Because I know in many sports contracts, if your discipline's a big issue in the contract.
Yeah.
So if you've got foul discipline and you're doing stuff, you don't get paid, or they'll fine you.
Announcing the suspension, NFL Vice President of Football Operations John Runyon said Vontaze was suspended for repeated violations of unnecessary roughness rules. Addressing Burfict directly, Runyon added, "You have continued to flagrantly abuse rules designated to protect yourself and your opponents from unnecessary risk." The message was about as straightforward as it gets from the NFL. After the season, Burfict became a free agent and shared that he wanted to continue playing in the NFL. However, nobody else in the league wanted him to continue playing football. To this day, nobody has signed Vontaze, even though he has not declared that he is retired. Vontaze Burfict will forever be a part of football lore for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah, you don't want that reputation.
I don't think anyone will sign him either.
I don't know how long ago that was.
If I was the coach, I wouldn't want him on my team.
No, you don't want people like that. They're going to cost you games.
How stupid are the Raiders, though, to make him captain?
Sometimes responsibility takes away from discipline. So it's like, if you've got poor discipline, like Arsenal tried to do it with Aubameyang, make him captain. And what's it just made it worse. The team went bad, and that's what happened. It's like a cancer. They just spread right throughout the team, and all of a sudden you got a bad team because they all think ill discipline's acceptable, and it isn't. So he's a nasty piece of work.
I hate people like that, though, don't you?
He's a nasty piece of work. Like I say, I love aggression, but not within the rules. Dirty play and stuff like that. Just not. There's no room for it, sort of thing.
He's literally just going to injure people, isn't he? He's just trying to hurt people.
Yeah, and he didn't get the message neither. Such a talented player who had the world at his feet, had so much opportunity. Just
it's not
to throw
really
it away.
The same saying, though, is it? The world at his feet.
The world at his feet.
Because he's not playing football.
He's playing football.
Yeah, but not football. He's playing American football. He's not playing soccer.
Okay, they've got the world in his hands.
He's got the world in his hands. He's got the world in his hands.
He's got the whole wide world in his hands. Yeah. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed that. Don't forget to like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.
Cheers.